Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the Extra Mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now, your host, Jackson Mummy, owner of the Celebration Bar Review.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to episode 165 of the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. This is your host, Jackson Mummy. I'm glad to be with you. As this episode is being released at the end of September, hope you're having a good month. If you've gotten your results, hope they were favorable, obviously. If you're still waiting for results, which would be the majority of bar takers from the July exam, we hope that those are going to be favorable ones for you. Today's message is going to focus for really, I think, almost anyone, but certainly for those of you who are waiting for results, it's going to have some meaning, and that is to look at some reasons that people give historically about why they think they failed the bar exam. I'm going to try to debunk some of those myths and then tell you what I think the real reason is that people ultimately pass or fail their exams. So I hope you'll stick around for that message. I think you're going to find it useful. Now, if this is your first time on the podcast with us, we really want to say hi, welcome you. Thanks for joining us. Glad that you found us. You can take these podcast episodes with you in a couple of different ways. You can always listen on Apple iTunes Radio or in iHeartRadio with the podcast for the audio version only. If you prefer the video version, just go to our website at celebrationbarreview.com and then /165. That's for the episode number. And all of our video episodes, going back for a few months now, you can find by just typing in celebrationbarreview.com / and then the number of the episode. So this is 165. And we'd love to have you join us on the video page if that's your preference as well. Also invite you to share these episodes with people that you know who are taking the bar or are about to take the bar or maybe waiting for bar results. We appreciate how much the podcast has grown over the past couple of years, almost entirely by word of mouth. So that's very kind of you. Now, if you're going to be taking the bar exam in 2018, whether you're a first-time taker or a repeat bar taker, I want to give you a special invitation to join me next week for a webinar entitled How to Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam. Now, for a long time, we did this webinar live on Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're continuing to do that, but we've actually added a second showing because we've got so many people that want to go through the course. And so now, if Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern does not work for you, you can join us on the webinar on Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. That would be 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific. Ha! Pretty good. I didn't think I'd get that. In any event, Monday at 7 p.m., we're doing the webinar as well, or Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Now, you do need to register. It's completely free, but you do need to register and claim your seat. And you can do that by going to our website at celebrationbarreview.com. Scroll down the page just a short way, and you'll see a button that says Claim My Free Spot. Choose the date and time that works for you, and we'll see you on the webinar. If you're watching this video podcast today, just scroll down the page a little bit below the video and you'll find the same button and you can claim your seat in the webinar as well. Now, this webinar will show you the proven, powerful way to pass your bar exam. I'm going to walk you through step by step what successful bar takers do, and it's really valuable information, jam-packed filled, yes it is, with a lot of stuff you can use. So there you go. I hope you'll join us. We've had thousands of people go through this webinar, and it's really been a great success for them and for us. So I hope that you'll be with me for that. I also want to let you know that on Saturday at 12 noon Eastern, I will be doing a Facebook Live presentation on Celebration Bar Exam Review on our Facebook page. So go to facebook.com Celebration Bar Review at 12 noon Eastern. I'll be doing a Facebook Live, an opportunity to interact with me and to share a message with you there. So lots of different ways that you can stay in touch with us and lots of things that we're trying to offer to you. With regard to exam release dates, as you know, Florida exams have come out. We've had a few smaller jurisdictions for the uniform bar exam release their results. Now we go into a bit of a lull in October. Certainly for the first part of October, we don't expect any large states to release results. Probably for us, the next really big release will come near the end of the month for Texas, and then we assume New York will be somewhere end of October, early November. There's no fixed date for those results, but those are the two next big jurisdictions. And as we say, if you're waiting for your results, we wish you well. Well, whether you're waiting for results or you're not yet taking the bar exam, we know that it's really typical and common to ask, why do people fail? It's a good question, and I wanted to share with you some thoughts in today's message about why I think people fail and why people sometimes erroneously think they fail, and the difference between those two. So let's jump into today's message. Bar exam results are starting to come out in different jurisdictions right now as I'm recording. And if you've been following along in our series about bar exam piece, I've been moving through the process. We started really with the post-mortem, what you did right after the exam, and then we started talking a little bit about waiting for your results and how you have some peace with that. And now we're starting to move to the point of actually getting your results. And we've got some things to say about getting the results. But right now, we're in kind of an interesting period in which we're talking about some people having their results right now, other people waiting for their results, and of course, always people who are just starting the process. And what I want to talk about today is, what do you do when you've got that unfortunate result that you failed the exam? And often what occurs is that people start trying to analyze, rightfully so, why they failed. And so today's message, I'm not really sure exactly how to title it. I originally called it, Why Do Some People Fail Their Bar Exams? But actually, most everything I'm going to say is why I think people don't fail, but more like the excuses that people give for why they failed and why those are excuses. I was looking at keywords the other day that people use to find our website on the bar that Google puts out. And there was a Google search that had been coming up that said, quote, why do I keep failing the bar exam? You know, that was heartbreaking to me because when you see someone typing that into a Google search, you know what's happened and you know the pain that that's created and the consternation and the frustration and the despair that's behind it. And it really stuck with me that someone was typing in that question, why do I keep failing? And I thought it might be helpful to talk about why, in my experience, people think they fail and why they keep failing the exam, and to debunk a lot of the mythology around why people think they fail the exam. Because truthfully, I think when you go down these rabbit holes about why you think you failed, and if they're not correct, you're just wasting your time and energy. So what I'm going to do today is to be something of a devil's advocate. I'm going to give you a fair number of the things that I have heard people say as the reasons why they failed the exam. I'm going to tell you why I think those are incorrect. And then, and this is sort of the hook to keep you till the end, I'm going to tell you why I think people really fail the bar exam. And my answer may surprise you because it's not going to be one of the items that are on this list of common reasons that people fail. And I'll make some comments as we go through that may clue you in. But these are the things in over 25 years of working with bar takers that I hear and see and read from people who fail the bar typically more than once. Well, certainly one-time failure is more than enough. So let's dig into them. The number one reason that I see and hear from people as to why they think they failed their bar exam is that they'll say, I didn't study enough. Now, that's an interesting comment. I don't know what the word enough really is. Some people would say, I studied too much. I've had many students tell me that they were studying 15 or more hours a day because their big box generic bar review told them that was the way to absolutely make sure that they passed. And then they come back and they say, in retrospect, I think I was so stressed out, burned out from all of those hours of study that I just didn't do my best on the exam. Or on the other end of the spectrum, there are the people who beat themselves up incessantly by playing the what if game. I spent 100 hours of studying. What if I'd spent 200? Or I spent 200 hours of studying. What if I should have spent 300 or 400? It's the classic type A personality who says, whatever I did, well, it just wasn't good enough. Now, that's the kind of thinking that often gets people into law school and into this career to begin with. It's what takes a lot of people who we would not expect to be successful because of life circumstances and to find them very successful. The problem is it's a very debilitating methodology and approach to take when you're analyzing your passing or failing on the bar exam. And for those who say they didn't study enough, unless you didn't study at all, if you were one of those people that walked in a week before the bar exam and tried to cram for a few days, well, then you're right, you didn't study enough. But that is really an aberration these days. But for most people, the odds are that you did study enough. That's actually not the reason that most people failed. Now, sometimes connected with this how many hours did I study problem, people will say, well, I didn't memorize the law enough or effectively enough. When I hear that, I know I'm talking to someone who's bought into the whole approach of the generic bar review, which is we're going to present a bunch of ideas to you and information, you memorize them, and then you go in and spit it back to the examiners, as though that's the skill that the test makers want to see demonstrated. And if the bar exam really were a test of memorization, then I think the most successful people would be the ones that are best at memorizing, doing their mnemonics, the people who are hypnotized to give back all of the information that they've recited and memorized and learned. The problem is I've never seen any empirical evidence to suggest anything of that sort, and I have challenged the big box bar reviews to produce that evidence, and surprisingly, or not surprisingly, they've never done so. I don't think memorization actually makes any difference at all on the bar exam, except that it wastes an extraordinary amount of time in study. I think that in the practice of law, memorization has little or no role at all today. And I've spoken about this extensively in other places, but I'll simply point out that when you can get all of the law by asking Alexa or Lexus or Siri or Westlaw, there's really not much of a value in being able to memorize. And the bar examiners know this, and they don't reward that behavior. And I think that if you don't give the bar examiners credit in understanding that they're only going to test skills that are used in practice, you're really missing the boat here. The bar examiners are smarter than a lot of bar takers give them credit for. So for those that think that the reason they failed is that they didn't memorize enough, here's my challenge. Memorize more, change nothing, and I pretty much guarantee you'll still fail. Sad to say, but true. Some people will say, I failed the bar exam because I didn't do enough practice questions. Now again, there's sort of a built-in mythology in the bar review world that if 10 questions are good for you, 15 would be better. If 10 essays are good, 50 essays would be better. If 1,500 multiple choice questions were good, 3,000 would be doubly good. Even if those 3,000 are ridiculous questions that don't bear any resemblance to the exam and don't have good answer explanations, it just doesn't make any sense, does it? It's not doing the work, it's getting the value out of the work. And so the way that you practice is not a matter of quantity, but clearly a matter of quality. So I'm skeptical of that claim as well. Now, I recognize that there was a company many years ago that made its living entirely on telling people to do 50 multiple choice questions a night. Well, there was no real reason behind that thinking. It was just something to give people to do. And when I talked to the owner of that company and said, why do you tell people? His response was, well, it just keeps them busy. And I said, doesn't it have something to do with results? And he said, oh, no, it has nothing to do with it. So there you go. Now, some people will say that they failed the bar exam because they didn't take the biggest bar review. It's not so much students would say it. I suppose it's as the big box bar reviews would say, if you didn't take us, then you failed because we're huge and we're controlling what the whole world does. And if you don't do it our way, you're going to be, an outsider and you're going to fail. That is nonsense. That is completely ridiculous. And statistically, it's ridiculous because the big box bar reviews, who do have most of the bar takers, have the state bar pass rate. And by the way, in case you hadn't noticed, the state bar pass rate is less than 50% passing in most major jurisdictions over each year. The point is, the big box bar reviews own the pass rate, and it's terrible. So taking them or not taking them is absolutely of no value to you in terms of passing or failing on its own. You see, the pass rate is literally just their pass rate. And so, a few years ago, one of those big bar reviews was just coming into the market at the time, and they were giving students money back if they failed. Well, they stopped that practice pretty quickly because they cut a lot of checks. See, most people that take the big bar reviews fail the bar exam, and then they start coming around and looking and saying, hey, maybe there's something else out there. So not taking the big box bar review makes no sense at all as a reason why you failed. Don't let anybody tell you that. It's just not true. It's also not really a reason that people passed. And I hear this all the time. Well, I have friends that used IRAC, or they took the big box bar review and they passed. And I point out that this is the fallacy of correlation and causation. A lot of those people probably wore blue jeans to the bar exam. Did the blue jeans cause them to pass or fail? I doubt it. It's really correlative. It's not causative. And that's the point here. A lot of people take these big bar reviews. Most of them fail. A few of them pass. I don't know what you can derive from that, but it's certainly not a reason to take that course by itself. Sometimes people will say, I failed the bar exam because I wasn't smart enough. Or alternatively, I wasn't a good enough test taker. I'm not enough, I don't have enough talent at writing essays or doing multiple choice questions. And that's an interesting position to take. Here's my thought. You were smart enough and talented enough and good enough to get into law school. You didn't come into law school as an unformed intellect and then repackaged and sent out as a practicing lawyer. Actually, all that happened in law school is that you were taught a new language called the law. That's really all that happened. And you had the luxury of being able to think and talk and experiment and try new ideas. That's really what occurred. They didn't turn you into a lawyer. They didn't make you a good multiple choice question taker. They didn't make you a better writer necessarily. They just taught you a new language. And so the reality is that if you had an expectation that you're supposed to come out of law school with all of these skills, I got to tell you, that's just not what happens in the practice of law or in the preparation for law school. I would say to those of you that are practicing attorneys going to another jurisdiction, if you failed, well, look, you're good enough to practice law in your previous jurisdiction. It's hard to believe you're not smart enough or good enough test taker now. It sounds more to me in all of these circumstances like people simply weren't able to understand what they were being asked to do on the test or what the specific task was. In other words, if the examiners aren't interested in memorization, why spend your time and energy doing that? You see the point. And so I think that rarely do we come across people taking the bar exam that I would say, that person's just not smart enough. This one really gets to me, the next one on my list. Sometimes people say, I didn't pass because I didn't know the secret to passing. Really? I don't know the secret to passing either. I think I know what causes good bar taking or bad bar taking, but I don't think that there are secrets. And I think when you buy into the notion that there's some sort of hidden code, a hidden secret, and if you can just discern that hidden code, you win, well, that's really silly. It's simplistic, not very accurate, and truthfully, not very realistic. Well, sometimes people will say, I didn't pass because I was too old, or rarely, I was too young, or more commonly, I went to the wrong law school, or I had bad teachers in law school, or I had bad teachers in the bar review. All of the external things that happen. Really, this is just a way of saying it's not my fault. I'm too old or I'm too young. My teachers were good or my teachers were bad. My law school was good or my law school was bad. But here's again what you learn after a long period of years and many thousands of people that I've worked with. I've seen people from the best law schools who failed the exam repeatedly. I've seen people from the absolute dregs, the worst law schools in America, who passed the exam. I've seen people from foreign countries where I can't imagine that their legal education was very good who've passed the exam. It's not really the fault of the law school. I've had students as old as 79 years old pass the bar exam. I've had some brilliant young students in their early 20s pass the exam. I can't believe that it's really age-related. I've had students that told me they had awful teachers in law school and others who said they had great teachers, and really it's no indication of success or failure on the bar exam in any way, shape, or form. So those externals really don't make much difference in the long run. Some people will say that they failed because they got bad advice. Maybe that's true. It certainly can be a hindrance to get bad advice, like you should memorize, or you should do 50 multiple choice questions a night, or you should trust this algorithm here or there. I understand that, but I don't know that it's really the pure reason for failing. Maybe a more predictive response from some people would be they fail because they have difficulty writing or speaking English. It's not their first language. And I think that's a legitimate challenge for people who face that. But it's certainly not the only reason. Here's the truth. If you're good enough to come to the U.S. and sit for the exam, you can probably speak and write English to get through it. Now, I've worked with students who are trained in the UK who speak the Queen's English perfectly, but have trouble with the bar exam. I've also worked with students from all around the world who speak I don't know how many different languages who've been able to pass. Is it easy? Absolutely not, but it can be done. And the truth is that whether or not English is your first language or not is only a matter of degree. That is, how long you have to study, what kind of work you have to do, but it is not in and of itself a determinant by itself, unless you're simply incapable of reading and writing English. And if that's the case, then I don't know how you're even going to come to take the exam. But the truth is, I've seen plenty of people born and raised in this here United States who should be able to speak and write English, and they fail. So I don't really know that that's the pure reason. Something I hear more of frequently is that students say they fail because the test isn't fair, or the grading in their jurisdiction is unfair, or the cut score is too high. I think it's probably helpful for us to believe that that's true. It certainly makes someone who's failed feel better to believe that the test is unfair, the grading's unfair, the cut number's too high. But in large numbers, when you look at it over a period of time, there isn't a lot of empirical evidence to support either of those positions. I'm afraid it's more of a felt disparity than a real disparity. Is the test fair or not? I don't know. The examiners scale it. Is the grading fair or not? Well, the grading's different. It's certainly different than the way it used to be 30 or 40 years ago, but the criteria is different and the test itself is different. I think it's fair to say that the test is different, not that it's unfair or that the grading is unfair. And I would prefer that people say, I recognize that this is a different test than to say it's an unfair test. Some people tell me that they started studying too late or too early, and that's why they failed. And again, I'm not sure what the right answer would be. Our experience is 250 to 300 hours of study spread over 4 to 6 months is the sweet spot. You don't start studying with enough time, you're not going to get the work done. If you don't do that, yeah, I think that probably is a consideration, but it is not exclusive. Other people will say I didn't get enough personal attention, or maybe I got too much personal attention, the kind I didn't want. I don't know that that's really the reason either. Often I hear people say I can't read fast enough, I can't write fast enough, or I can't type fast enough. There's really no consistent correlation here with any of those statements either. Fast reading, we've got a photo reading course. We can get you up to 25,000 words a minute. Writing fast enough, we've got a writing system that lets you get enough words on the paper for your jurisdiction that you can be successful. Fast typing, that comes with practice more than anything else. In other words, none of those are really inherent barriers in my mind. Well, I guess you get the point. I could probably go on and on with the list. It seems that essentially what I'm talking about is a series of excuses or cascading failures. One thing leads to the next, leads to the next, leads to the next. And as a result, when people continually fail the exam, there seems to be more than one of those things on the list that I've just given you. And I know how incredibly frustrating and difficult that is. But none of it really is determinate. So, you've been with me this long. I think I need to tell you what I think really does determine why some people fail the exam. I think that all of the things on this list that I've given you were simply outward manifestations of inner beliefs. Now stay with me. I have seen what happens to people based on their beliefs about themselves and their ability. I have seen people who believe that they're going to fail, who simply self-sabotage. They do the things that will assure themselves of failing. I have also seen people who believe that they'll pass when I thought, man, I'm not sure that they've really got a chance, but they really believed it and they found a way to pass. And when I go back and look at who passes and who fails, almost without exception, for years and thousands of students where I know anything about the student and their history and their beliefs and their backgrounds, it is the people who believed that they would fail who failed, and the people who believed that they would pass who passed. You see, it's really difficult to overcome all of the external barriers to being successful in the exam if at your core you don't think you're good enough. Alternatively, if you really believe that you're good enough and talented enough and capable, then you may fail a few times, but you will pass the bar exam and overcome all of those external barriers. I have worked with students who have taken the bar exam 20 times before they passed, but they passed. And why? I think what changed for a lot of them is that they began to believe that they had the tools that would allow them to be successful, and they began to believe in themselves, and that's why they succeeded. I know it's not easy when I say that the reason some people fail the exam is because at a deep level, they believe that that's what's going to happen. If you're one of those people, you're probably saying, oh, I hate this guy. I'm going to give this video a thumbs down. How dare he say that? It's really all of the things on the list. Okay, well, you've heard my reason why the things on the list don't really work. There's no empirical evidence for any of it to prove that that's the reason. I actually think at the end of the day, when people don't believe that they're good enough to succeed, they will find a reason and a way to fail. But the amazing thing about the human brain is that when it believes it can succeed, when it truly believes there's a way, it will find a way to climb over, get around, crawl under, make it happen. And those are the people that do it time after time after time. So as we're talking about bar exam peace, I would simply say this. If you have a lingering doubt or suspicion about your ability or your capability, take some time to really address that. Think about it, write about it, journal about it. We've got lots of videos on our site about ways that you can deal with that. If you're in our course, we've got lots of resources available for you to help you with that as well. We do that because we have seen that that is the most important predeterminant of success or failure on the exam. Well, I hope that helps. We'll be back with the next message in our series soon. Thanks for being with me today. Well, that's our message for today. I hope that you found it helpful and useful. I know it's a little unnerving to think that what really controls your outcome is whether you think you can pass or you think you can fail. And yet it's absolutely incontrovertible that that is the primary number one reason that causes the results to be what they are. Well, again, I just want to remind you that we've got a free webinar coming up on Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern or Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, how to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. If you're watching the video here today, just scroll down this page to enroll and claim your free seat. If you're not, if you're just listening to the podcast, jump on our website at celebrationbarreview.com and you can register there, and then we'll see you for that webinar. Again, thanks to everybody for being with us, and hopefully we'll see you on the webinar, and we'll see you Saturday on Facebook on our Celebration Bar Review Facebook page at 12 noon Eastern for our Facebook Live. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at www.celebrationbarreview.com.